Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football week number 3 picks and predictions, where I predict the final score of every single ranked game. And let me just say, I think this is probably worse than week 1. I mean, week 3, I'm not even sure if there's a ranked versus ranked matchup. There's like 24 or 25 games I'm actually predicting because every ranked team plays an unranked team almost. But we're going to kick it off on Friday. Bethune-Cookman traveling to take on the U. Boy, I wonder what the attendance will be in this game. Friday game at Hard Rock, 7:30. Miami, they're ranked now. That's why I'm predicting it. They're coming off that big win, and I do not think this will be close. FCS versus FBS. It should be a complete blowout. There's no line for it, obviously. Moving to the noon window, it is Florida State. Right now, sitting top 4 teams. Some people have them at number 1 in the country. Traveling to Boston College, noon game. So the only concern with Florida State, with a 28.5 point line like this, are they going to be up for it? Boston College is horrible. They're at home. The attendance is going to be terrible. It's early. I think Florida State stays focused. They've got a veteran team, and they win this game very easily. I would stay away from betting it personally, just because 28.5 is kind of an annoying number, especially with Florida State possibly dealing with a little bit of jet lag, a little bit of tiredness. They just had the big week 1 game. Last week they were at home. It was a late night 8:30 game. I think they win this one easily, though. Boston College is simply overmatched. I mean, Boston College lost to Northern Illinois week 1, and then Northern Illinois lost to an FCS team in week 2. So Boston College is really bad. Next, we've got an 11 a.m. Central local time start. It's Illinois at home against Penn State. So I've said from the beginning, Illinois is not that good this year. People were overreacting. They lost 3 very key players that went to the NFL, and I said they would probably be a 5-7 team. Penn State was minus 16. The lines dropped to minus 14. I love Penn State football, but it is 11 a.m. It's one of those games. They're going to be sluggish. I do have them winning and covering, but I'm not overly confident they're going to be able to score 34 points, but still, Penn State's significantly better than Illinois. I said Illinois would get crushed last week to Kansas, and that's exactly what happened. So I'll take Penn State here by 20. Another noon game. It is Kansas State at Missouri. So Missouri really struggling out of the gate week 1 and week 2. Kansas State sitting minus 5. Kansas State beats an FCS team week 1. They beat Troy handily week 2. So I guess this will be an upset for me, although I think Missouri probably should be slightly favored, or at least it should be a pick'em. Missouri has some talent. They've got Luther Burden, who's a former 5-star receiver. He's been playing better. I'll take Missouri at home. They haven't been playing well. I don't really trust either of these teams, but I'll go ahead and take the home team. I think there's great value on Missouri at home, plus the 5. Another noon game. It is Mississippi State at home against LSU. So, LSU coming into this game, they crush Grambling. The week before that, they get blown out by FSU. 10 points is just too much, and it is a little bit surprising. This line opened up at 9, and I thought it would immediately get bet down to like 7, and it went up to 10. And I understand LSU does have more talent. There's no doubt about it. Mississippi State did struggle a bit against a bad Arizona team, but they ended up winning. They're at home. They've got Will Rogers. I've gone back and forth on this game because LSU last year, they did have several of these games where they're facing like mid-tier SEC teams and they blow them out. So maybe that's what happens here. I do think LSU wins it, but Will Rogers, dude's like a super senior at home, plus the 10 against an LSU team who I've always thought is overrated. I feel like it's good value. LSU wins this game, but it is relatively close. Moving to a 2 o'clock game, so noon Mountain Time start. It is Weber State traveling to take on Utah. Utah right now, 97% chance to win. That's very important. This Weber State team is very good for FCS if you look at the analytics, and I do think it'll be relatively close. I think Utah is going to get a scare in this one. Utah is not impressive to me. I know they beat Florida in week 1 on Thursday. It's a decent win, and then week 2, you beat a Baylor team who lost to Texas State. You struggle. Is Cam Rising going to be back for this game? Probably not. I think it's surprisingly close against an FCS team, and they survive a scare against a team they're not going to be ready for. They're going to be looking ahead. they win this game, but barely. There is no line for it there. 2:30 games. So Notre Dame does this early in the season. They'll play these 2:30 games, not 3:30. This week, it's the week before Ohio State. They are facing Central Michigan, and Central Michigan this year is horrifically bad. So bad to the point where the FPI gives Notre Dame around a 99% chance to win, which is basically on par with FCS. Notre Dame sitting right now minus 34. I've seen a few different places it's gone down to like 33.5 maybe. But either way, I think they're going to be right at that number. This is going to be a very workmanlike effort for Notre Dame. Sam Hartman, there's zero chance he plays into the fourth quarter. He's probably out of this game midway through the third, if not earlier, because Notre Dame is getting ready for that Ohio State game. I understand people will probably take Central Michigan here because it's a look-ahead game for Notre Dame. I just think Central Michigan is so horrible, they probably won't be able to cover even a 34-point spread against a team who's looking ahead. So I will go ahead and take Notre Dame to win that game very easy, and probably the under is hitting in this game because I'm sure the over-under is probably somewhere in the mid-50s. Now we're on to the 3:30 window. It is South Carolina traveling to Georgia. Right now, Georgia sitting minus 27. And this does feel like a very weird year. And I know we always say that every year, but, you know, everyone thinks Georgia's just going to coast to the SEC championship. They're going to go undefeated. You know, I think they win this game, but it's going to be a lot closer than people expect. Georgia's sitting minus 27. Carson Beck has not been tested at all. This Georgia team, it's UT Martin, it's Ball State. You know, part of the reason to me this game is going to be close is because Georgia's schedule has been so bad. They're going to come into this game a little lackadaisical. They will end up winning. You know, South Carolina, they really haven't proved anything. They lost a horrible week 1 game to North Carolina, who I don't think is very good. And then week 2, they kind of struggled a little bit against an FCS team before they pulled away. So South Carolina, but you do have to understand, South Carolina does have a more experienced quarterback, Spencer Rattler. There was some hype behind this team last year. They do have high upside in terms of them being able to upset teams last year like Clemson. So I see this game being surprisingly close, and it's going to have a lot to do with Georgia's schedule being so bad early in the season. They're going to be caught off guard a little bit by South Carolina. I don't see Georgia losing this game, but people are going to look up and be like, wow, you know, this is a crazy year for college football if Georgia is struggling in that one. Another 3:30 game. This is the fun one. Alabama traveling to South Florida. It is going to feel like a neutral site game, though, because it is, you know, Raymond James Stadium. This is at 3:30. Bama sitting minus 32. This game is on ABC. Pretty fun that this game is happening. You know, Alabama coming off that loss. I'm sure they probably will stick with Jalen Milroe, and I think Bama will destroy South Florida. South Florida's really bad. It'd be hilarious to see South Florida somehow make this a game, but yeah, this year they're terrible. The last few years, South Florida's been terrible, and there is just zero home field advantage. If anything, it's probably going to be more Alabama fans. This is an NFL stadium located in Tampa, Florida. I'll take Bama to rebound in a big way. 54-10. Another 3:30 game, so this game's 12:30 Pacific time. It is San Diego State on the road at Oregon State. San Diego State is horrible this year. Oregon State sitting minus 23. Oregon State is 2-0 against the spread. To me, this is a little bit of a trap game against the spread. Even for as bad as San Diego State is, 23 points is a lot, you know, against a team like them. So I'm going to say 31-13. San Diego State always seems to have a good defensive pedigree. They have a horrible offense, don't get me wrong, but I will go with San Diego State covering the 23. 23 is a tough task for Oregon State, even though they are at home. Next, we have Oklahoma traveling to Tulsa. So Oklahoma, man, they're facing all of these teams. It was SMU last week. Now it's Tulsa. All the teams in the middle of the country. That's their non-conference schedule. They're sitting minus 26 in a weird road game. I am not expecting the Tulsa faithful to really be up for this one. I guess we'll see. Oklahoma 96% chance to win, and I've got it pretty carbon cut, 45-21 win. This game probably going over because the last Oklahoma game was really low scoring against SMU, so I'm guessing this is going to be higher scoring. But honestly, the over-under in this game probably is in the mid-60s, so I don't even know if I would pick it to go over because I have the total coming to 66 in this one. Either way, Oklahoma, it's going to be a workmanlike effort. They'll win this game easily. Another 3:30 game, it is Minnesota traveling to Drake May and North Carolina. North Carolina sitting -6. Minnesota has a horrifically bad offense, and also I think Notre Dame's overrated, so it's kind of like negative versus negative, and you're going to be shocked when Minnesota is actually in this game late. They will lose. It's shocking that Minnesota is 2-0, but they had that comeback win against Nebraska. They beat a MAC team last week. It was uninspiring. Horrible offense. I love the under in this game. Minnesota will be able to kind of keep Drake May at bay because that's just not a very good offense North Carolina has. They nearly lost to Appalachian State. I'm guessing this is going to be a lower scoring game. Next, we have Duke. So Duke's still ranked, sitting at 2-0. They're taking on Northwestern in the battle of institutional power. Yes, academics here. Duke is at home, -20. And I'll give Northwestern credit. They easily beat UTEP last week. They were sitting 2.5-point underdogs. I think they cover another spread. Duke will win this game. 20 points is a lot. I've got it at 30-14 and kind of a little boring game there. Another 3:30 game, it is Western Michigan traveling to Iowa. So this is another game that's probably going to be very boring. Iowa sitting -28.5. Western Michigan a little bit better than Central Michigan, but still, I've got this game at 37-7, and that would probably require Iowa to score at least one defensive touchdown to score 37 points. I mean, let's be honest, but I've got them dropping a 30 burger, which is huge for Iowa football. We've got a 4 o'clock game, kind of an interesting start time. It is Ohio State at home against Western Kentucky. So Ohio State right now, in my opinion, it's blatantly obvious the analytical models have not caught up to this Ohio State team. You see them listed -27.5. It's almost laughable. This Western Kentucky team with a veteran quarterback in Austin Reed. They've got a really good receiver. This is a very, very hard game for Ohio State, believe it or not, and there's no way they cover this 27.5-point spread. The things I've been hearing about Ohio State, I was tempted to pick a massive upset, and if Western Kentucky actually won this game, I mean, this would be the worst Ohio State loss since I can really remember against a non-conference, group of 5 team. I'm not there yet. I'm not going to pick it because I really want the Ohio State-Notre Dame game next week to be top 10 matchup. But when you look at Ohio State, all I can go off of is what I've seen in the first 2 games. And I'm sure Kyle McCord's going to get better, but Kyle McCord is still a question mark. Yes, he's better than Devin Brown. That really doesn't say much. But you look at Ohio State's offensive line, there's issues. You look at Ohio State's defensive line, there's also issues. Ohio State facing Indiana week 1, facing Youngstown State in week 2. Western Kentucky's offense is 100 times better than both of those. And this is a game where it's going to be nobody expects it to be an upset. It reminds me a lot of 2 years ago, Ohio State had a game against Tulsa. And it was like C.J. Stroud's 3rd start overall, and it was like rock bottom. They almost lost. Trevion Henderson had 250 rush yards. Google it, because I remember it. Ohio State ended up winning, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they were facing Tulsa. Western Kentucky is a lot better than Tulsa, so really, I could just go off of what I've seen. I am not liking what I'm seeing from Ohio State right now. Maybe they prove me wrong, but I think this is a surprisingly close game, and Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. end up making some big plays late and get it done. A 5 o'clock game. This game is brutal because it's on Peacock, and also you're dealing with Mel Tucker being suspended, so what do we make of this game? Michigan State at home against Washington. Mark D'Antonio back on the sidelines. I think Michigan State's going to have a lot of juice for this one because this game opened Washington -14. With all the turmoil surrounding Mel Tucker, it's been bumped to 16, but that's kind of why I like MSU because all of the public is on Washington. I think Michigan State can cover this. Their quarterbacks looked good. Yes, they faced no one, but there's going to be a lot of energy at Spartan Stadium. It is annoying that it's on Peacock. No one's going to be watching it, but I do think Michigan State will cover against a Washington team that's getting a ton of hype, and I like Washington a lot, but I think Michigan State will cover. You've got an FBS versus FCS. It is Northern Colorado, who is sitting 0-2 right now, taking on Washington State. This is probably the only Washington State game I'm going to be predicting. Well, actually, they'll probably be ranked next week as well. But yeah, I'm guessing Washington State being in the Pac-12, they're going to lose some games here pretty soon. But you know what? They did beat Wisconsin, and now they are ranked, I think, number 23. And I've got them easily beating Northern Colorado 37-3. Northern Colorado is horrible. And we've got another FCS game. It is NC Central taking on UCLA. This UCLA team is going to be really good, especially if Dante Moore, the five-star true freshman, continues to develop. Imagine how good they're going to be next year under Chip Kelly's tutelage, and then when he's a junior. This is a weird 5 o'clock game. It's a 2 o'clock Pacific start time, and I've got UCLA dropping a 50-burger, 54-14 in a win there. Moving to the 7 o'clock window, it is Tennessee sitting -7 on the road at Florida. Florida coming off a dominant win against McNeese. You've got Tennessee struggling last week with FCS. I guess both of these teams faced an FCS team, but Tennessee really struggled against Austin Peavy. Tennessee sitting -7, and you know, in a week like this when there's really no good games, there's going to be an upset, and this is the upset for me in the swamp. I have Florida beating Tennessee as 7-point underdogs. I just think Tennessee this year, I'm getting the vibe Joe Milton's not the guy. I'm getting the vibe they're almost ready to switch to their true freshman superstar Nico Lamanleva, and this is going to help them make that decision. You have a Florida team, say what you want. They crushed an FCS team last week. Tennessee really struggled with theirs. So I will take Florida to win this game outright. I understand Florida struggled week 1 against a not very good, Utah team, but this is college football. It's a week-to-week thing. They're at home. It's 7 o'clock. I believe it's on ESPN. The juice is going to be there. The value plus the 7 against a Tennessee team who's been struggling. I will take that, and I will take Florida winning that game outright. On to the 7:30 games. I believe this game is on BTN, so Michigan will be playing Bowling Green. Michigan sitting -40. They are 0-2 against the spread right now, and at some point you would think they would cover one of these spreads. Well, I guess I don't have them covering this one, 52-14. Bowling Green has a decent offense, actually, so it'll be interesting. I would stay away from betting on Michigan or against Michigan at this point until they get Harbaugh back, just because it seems like they're really being conservative. It's almost like there's good value on Bowling Green plus the 40, but then you're kind of chasing it because you would have to think Michigan would be due to cover one of these games considering they are 0-2 against the spread. Also, Ohio State is 0-2 against the spread as well, so maybe those teams are due, but they've got to prove it to me, and I think Bowling Green has a good enough offense. We will see. Another 7:30 game. It is Georgia Tech traveling to Ole Miss. Ole Miss sitting -20. So I think this game's going to be very close. Georgia Tech is an underrated team this year. Ole Miss, to me, is really overrated. Ole Miss gets this win. Ole Miss coming off that win against Tulane, but Tulane was without their starting quarterback. This feels almost free when you look at Georgia Tech plus the 20 on the road. 8 o'clock game on Longhorn Network. It is Wyoming traveling to Texas. Texas coming off the big win in Tuscaloosa, ranked inside of the top 5. Texas sitting -28. I feel pretty good about Wyoming covering this spread. This will certainly be a hangover type game for Texas. Wyoming won in week 1 against a good Texas Tech team, and I will take them to cover here. They've got a good enough defense, in my opinion. Another 8 o'clock game. This game happening at 5 p.m. local time. Hawaii traveling to Oregon. This is a very tropical game. Yes, Oregon sitting -37. Oregon, they destroyed Portland State in week 1. I think they're going to destroy Hawaii here and drop a 60-burger, 62-14. And although maybe I should make it a weird score because Oregon tends to go for 2 early in these games. I like them going for 2, honestly. And then the 10 o'clock game, so this is the nightcap. This game's on ESPN. It is Colorado State at Colorado. A little bit of a rivalry here. I'm kidding. Colorado sitting -23.5. Colorado State is just terrible. And also, Colorado right now, they've got so much momentum. I think they drop a 50-burger. Kind of a weird score. Higher scoring game, 52-18. It's a night game. And I will take Colorado to continue their momentum there. But guys, that is going to do it for my official college football week number 3 picks and predictions. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.